Sorry. I was trying to look into the camera and then I couldn't tell if you'd frozen or not.
No. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fourmation podcast. We are back. I believe this is episode 4. Yeah, definitely episode 4. Thank you very much for joining us again. We are 4 football journalism students. I think I say that every week. I say the intro the same every week, but we're going to go with it. I am George and I'm also joined by
Harry, Sam,
Devon.
And we've got it right for the second week in a row. So we've made a pretty good start there. So yeah, we hope you are all well, our listeners. Hopefully you're getting through lockdown pretty well, but also that you enjoyed last weekend, a return of football. It wasn't football as we maybe know it, but at least it was back, some live action back on our screens. That is how we're going to start this episode. I know last week we spoke a bit about the weekend that was approaching. That's gone now. We've got some results to look at finally, rather than picking at news and trying to find that. We've got some actual results and some football that has been played. So we're going to start off looking back on last week's Bundesliga. So I'm going to start with you, Devon. Which games did you watch last weekend and who were you impressed by in particular?
I think first and foremost, I think everyone were impressed and blown away a bit by Dortmund's, battering of Schalke. Can you say a very unfit Schalke it looked and unprepared in ways. I also watched, just to skip over so other people can talk, Frankfurt Gladbach. That was a very good game. Gladbach won 3-1. I also watched St. Pauli Nuremberg because Matt Penny of Sheffield Wednesday was there, and I was checking, he's one young player that I'd like to see come back into the squad next season. And I think a lot of people watched Union Berlin versus Munich that Sunday evening, and then on the Monday, it was just a very good performance from Bayer Leverkusen. What about you guys?
Sam, I know you watched Leipzig on Saturday. What did you make of that game, and who stood out?
Yes. It was definitely an interesting one, seeing Leipzig, who are obviously going for the title this season. But they hit a stumbling block straight on first game back. They created a lot of chances. I think they had 19 shots against Freiburg, but the game ended in a 1-1 draw. So it was definitely a disappointing start for Leipzig. But there was a few players that caught my eye, even in the Leipzig team. Timo Werner, of course. He didn't get a goal or an assist, but he created 5 key chances for his teammates, and also Kevin Campbell, who set up the goal. He was really good, whipping lots of good balls in. And obviously Ademola Lookman, who we talked about last week, he came off the bench at half time and he looked bright, but he missed an absolute sitter in the second half, set up by Campbell, crossed into the middle of the box, the whole goal to aim at, but he missed it. Should have scored. Leipzig definitely should have won that game, but they didn't, so they fall down to 4th now with that win from Mönchengladbach.
And you mentioned that Ademola Lookman miss. I flicked over the beauty of last week. So many games on at 2:30. You wouldn't normally have live games in England. We know we wouldn't with 3 o'clock, but yeah. BT had all the games on, so I watched Dortmund first. Then it went 4-0. I thought, that game's over, let's switch over. Leipzig was on. I also switched because I had some money on Leipzig, but let's not talk about that. So I had the game on, and it wasn't just that Lookman miss. They must have had 5 or 6.
Yusuf Poulsen, who scored the equaliser, he had one before he equalised as well. But he scored a great header. Yeah. Go on.
They had so many chances, which on another day could have been a goal. Freiburg probably rode their luck, and they nearly nicked it at the end, didn't they? They thought they did. And VAR ruled it out, but
denied by VAR, very narrow offside. But for all the chances Leipzig had, I thought Freiburg looked very organised still, and they showed why they've been so hard to beat this season. Are just outside the Europa League spots.
And do you think we're dropping that? Just only getting a point out of that game now makes it into a 2-horse race, even just after 1 game week, like in this situation?
Yeah, probably, yeah, I would agree. But also, they're still in it's still up for grabs who gets those Champions League spots as well. Obviously, it's really tight between Leverkusen, who are in great form at the moment, Leipzig, of course, and Mönchengladbach, who are all, 2 points within each other. I mean, you can include Dortmund in that even as well. So probably, yeah, I'd say a 2-horse race now with Dortmund and Munich still to play each other and both looking great.
Harry, what about you? Was there anyone who you thought you'd maybe like to see in the Premier League? I know you had a watchful eye on Leipzig too, but were there any other teams that you were impressed by?
There were 3 teams that I really liked the look of. It was Leverkusen, Borussia Mönchengladbach, but I also really liked the look of the Wolfsburg attack, and in particular, their right back, Kevin Mbabu. I had a quick flick through his stats. I saw that he played really well, and his stats for that game blew my mind. Against Augsburg, he had 3 aerial duels won, 105 touches, which is the most in the game, 7 dribbles, more than 3 times anyone else on the pitch, 4 total tackles, 4 clearances, 7 crosses, and he got an assist, a match-winning assist as well. I was blown away by his performance, and I think he's someone, if he was to come to the Premier League, maybe in Arsenal or Tottenham, or if Hakimi leaves Dortmund, I think he'd slip straight into that right-back position, and I think he moved from Basel to Wolfsburg, and I think he's ready for that next step up as well.
There's another player, I think, Devon, you mentioned at the start, you mentioned Dortmund, of course, 4-0 winners against Schalke. I think before we mentioned Dortmund, Schalke didn't really put up much of a fight, but you can't really take anything away from Dortmund. Someone in particular who I thought really stood out, and maybe someone who doesn't get a lot of praise normally, is Rafael Guerreiro. 2 goals for him. He's now on 7 for the season, 3 assists for the season as well. How impressed were you with the impact that he made down that left side?
I think you're unplayable. I think as soon as the tiredness of Schalke caught up on them, it left gaps for Guerreiro to exploit, and just the interwinding passes that Dortmund created. If in order for Guerreiro to get that space, it meant Brandt and Hazard had to shift into the middle, which actually stretched their defence in a way which I've not seen for a while, especially in the Premier League, because they're all quite disciplined in the positioning and that. But I think due to tired legs, it was a bit like watching, when you play Sunday League, getting that final 10 minutes, defences start to come apart, tired legs, and Dortmund were just well equipped to exploit them areas. And Guerreiro, that first goal that he scored, the drilled shot across the keeper, he should have done better. If Nöbel was in goal, other than I don't know if he's been dropped or if he's injured, but if he was in goal, maybe he might have saved it. It were a young lad that were in, and unfortunately he had a very, very bad day. But he is coming up against some great players. Haaland was again unstoppable. He's just like a battling ram. And he's very different to a few strikers that we have. And to say how prolific he is, he's very quick for his size, and he's also very strong. And for his age, he looks years above where he is at now.
We should maybe mention what we made of the overall experience itself. I mentioned at the start how it was football, but football not as we've maybe seen it very often before, of course, being played behind closed doors in empty stadiums, several of which were massive, great stadiums with 3 tiers, which means there's a lot of echo. What did we make of the atmosphere? Do you think it maybe makes you appreciate how much the crowd contribute to a game? What did we think? Sam?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of hard to put into words how it felt. It was almost harrowing. Like, it was so weird being able to hear everything that was going on in the pitch. Definitely, like you say, it shows how important the fans are to creating that atmosphere. A lot of the games definitely lost that sort of tension, I feel, in my mind, with no crowd noise, because they almost indicate, without seeing the game, how the crowd is sounding, they almost indicate how the game's going. If you hear the home crowd roaring, you know that the home team are on top. So yeah, it was definitely weird. Of course, I'm grateful to have football back in any capacity, but it was definitely a strange one.
I think the home support like kind of stats in terms of the referees foul giving and the how linesmen work benefited both sides quite a lot, and I think we got a couple of surprising results, a couple of heavy ones. The only strange one is that I thought Schalke might have given up a better fight without the yellow wall being there, but it didn't seem that way. And plus the the aggressiveness of both sides, it was like a friendly. And I think that's why people criticised the level of football. I know I saw too many comments saying, "Oh, after 5 minutes I switched off," which kind of was like people trying to be fashionable on Twitter or trying to fish likes or comments, because I don't know from my perspective, because it makes it frustrating because we've worked so hard and we've been waiting patiently to get some football back. Whereas they're saying, it is nothing without fans, don't get me wrong. But with us having football back, it's occupying time that we have free. And, people are being a bit selfish by saying, you shouldn't be doing that. And if footballers are like us, they are sacrificing their lives in a way, even though they are paid, it still doesn't, make them invincible. But it's providing entertainment and probably boosting a lot of morale, especially in Germany, where we how passionate they are. And when it comes back for us, hopefully, when we'll talk about the tests in a bit, but it'll certainly lift morale. And on podcasts we'll be talking hours about it instead of ifs and buts.
What did you guys make of the? Sorry.
Go on, Sam.
Yeah. What did you guys make of the precautions that were put in place during the games, like wearing the face mask when you're close to the players or to the officials, and the separation of the bench?
I think it was more just to show the public what they should be doing, because I don't think it makes any difference, because as soon as you're in the changing room and there's no cameras, or when you're on the pitch they can get as close to them as they want. I think it's just a good message to send out that when you're not doing something, when you're not at work, when you're not doing this, when you're not doing that, you've got to stay separated. So I think as much as it did look odd and it didn't really, I don't think it's really affected many people if they were, clumped together. I think it's just a good message to send out.
And Devon, you mentioned the some of the tweets that you saw surrounding it on social media. I saw quite few on Saturday, but more and more as the weekend went on. People saying about the possibility of artificial crowd noise being added, whether that's in the stadium or just to the live TV broadcast. I know we've had a chat about this already, and you're shaking your head. You not a fan of this idea? Is that what you're trying to say? I
think the idea is just as bad as goal music itself, but goal music seems to be accepted like over there. I don't know. I think it's kind of trying to do too much to avoid one problem. We already know that there's not going to be any fans there, so let's either embrace it or get used to it for now, and look forward going forward. With good, there aren't many approaches they can take apart from. And I know that it's probably good of him for suggesting it, because in a way it should help players, but you're never going to be able to replicate that. The best moments in football, when a player goes through on goal, everyone's and you can hear it building up. As soon as you hit the back of the net or a clip of a post, your hair stand on end and you go into absolute euphoria. Or if it's against your side, you want to just cry. But I appreciate that they're trying it, but please let's not put any artificial crowd noise in, or any dolls like South Korea has.
Sam, do you not think it's maybe worth trying it for a weekend and then seeing what the reaction is? I know you were maybe against this as well, but I just think maybe this is a time to experiment.
I don't get it though. Like, people aren't stupid. They know there's no fans there. So what really is the point? I think it would remove even more tension on the game personally. It would just take me out of it. Hearing that artificial crowd noise, it would sort of put me off what's going on in the game.
Yeah, I think
they'll be confused because there's no one in the stadium. I know they know it's not actual people, but I think it'll just feel even more weird that there's no one there yet there's going to be crowd noises. And it's just, I think that would make it a bit harrowing more than anything else. Sort of feeling like there's ghosts cheering in the stadium.
Yeah.
So I'm more than happy for it just to stay how it is. And to be fair, I like it now in a weird way that I can hear the bench celebrating. There's something satisfying to me when I can hear the whole bench getting up and screaming. But yeah, for me, the artificial noise is just that'll make it a bit odd for me personally.
One thing I think it'll be interesting for us, especially obviously German people will be here to hear, but if it came on BT or Sky and, and we watch the Premier, if we watch the Premier League, if it starts again, you'll be able to hear what the players are saying to each other, what the manager's tactics are, and how they act and the mannerisms that they go through to get their team on side. And we've never really seen that apart from, if you non-league level when you sat behind the bench or something like that. And it'll be just very interesting to see. And also how the referee conducts himself as well. Will there be more respect because there isn't that crowd to protect you, or are they going to just carry on as normal? It's going to be interesting.
It shows how important communication is on the football pitch, because you can hear it constantly. You can hear the players, you can hear the manager shouting all the time. That's, I guess, been the interesting, more positive side of not having the fans.
They'd probably get to save their voices a bit too. They don't have to shout so loud.
Yeah, true.
So we spoke about the Revierderby taking place last weekend. This coming weekend is time for another derby, and it'll open the weekend's football up. On Friday night, it's Hertha Berlin against Union Berlin, and Hertha Berlin recently brought in their new manager, Bruno Labbadia. We didn't mention them then, but they convincingly got a win last week, 3-0 at Hoffenheim. Do we think they'll follow it up this weekend, Devon?
On paper, probably, yeah. But, as we said, we did say on our last episode that derbies can produce magic. They can produce other moments. And we didn't see that in the Revierderby. But, I particularly watched Union versus Bayern, as I think pretty much everyone did on that Sunday. And you could see how compact they were and how much they did frustrate Munich. Sorry, Munich. But they are the neck and neck in the league. But the bookies' favourites seem to be Hertha.
Yeah, so Go on, Sam.
I was just going to add, I believe Labbadia is Hertha's 5th coach since June, which is just insane. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a tasty one on Friday night. It's the first, I believe, in the Bundesliga era, so it should be a good one. One player to look out for in the Hertha team, Matthias Cunha, who came from RB Leipzig. He's got 3 goals in 3 games in the number 10 role, so that's one to look out for in the Hertha team. Any in the Union team that you could pick out, guys?
I think the main one that we saw was the leadership of and the knowledge and defensive ability of Nevan Subotic, who's played in some massive games for Dortmund in his time, and if they are to succeed defensively, and they were a little bit lackadaisical in times, especially with that Goretzka penalty, the foul on Goretzka for the penalty, Subotic needs to make sure that they're sharp and they're going to, every little bit is going to mean a little bit more to the fans at home. So they need to make sure that he drills that into the players before the game. It should be a very good watch.
Yeah, I think we're.
Go on, Sam.
Problem with Schalke.
I think we're likely to see Sebastian Andersen as well for Union, who's their top scorer. He was rested against Bayern Munich. He's got 11 goals. So we're likely to see him start up top. Hopefully he can bang some goals in for Union.
Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, Devon, should be a good one to start the weekend off, settle down on a Friday night and get the football on. It's something that everyone will have missed. Harry, you mentioned how impressed you were by Wolfsburg and particularly Imbarba, was it? Or however you say. That was it.
Nice try.
Wolfsburg face a pretty daunting task this coming weekend as they host Dortmund, who we also spoke about how impressive they looked. In the reverse fixture at Signal Iduna Park, Dortmund won it 3-0. What do Wolfsburg need to do to try and respond to that and get a result?
I think they need to do what they did a couple of days ago. To be honest, I really enjoyed their high pressing, wide football, and they just need to not rest on their laurels. They saw that 3-0 loss last time. Don't go defensive. Don't go defensive because you're going to get punished by the players like Haaland, Sancho. Because one mistake and it's 1-0 to Dortmund. So for me, they've got to play like they did against Augsburg, and I think they've got a good chance of getting a result. I'm not going to say they're going to win. I think it's more likely to be a draw, maybe a Dortmund loss, but I think it's their chance and some of these players' chance to show themselves in such a big fixture, because both teams a really impressive win last time out, and I think there's a good chance that Wolfsburg could get something out of the game.
Jadon Sancho, who of course has been impressive for England when he's played, he didn't start last weekend. Do you think he'll find it difficult to get back in after the impressive displays of Brandt and Hazard last week? Can you see him coming straight back in or not?
I was going to say, for me, as much as I said Sancho would be a threat, you've just beaten Schalke 4-0. There's not much you need to change. Maybe the player fits, because if they just come back, you might not want to play certain players if they're not as fit as others. But if everyone's fully fit, just keep an unchanged team. 4-0 against Schalke. Yes, Schalke weren't, like Devon said, at their fittest, and Wolfsburg might be a bit more of a challenge this current time. But I'd say if I was Dortmund, I'd keep the same team.
I think one of the factors is that Dortmund's win came at such an ease, really, and I don't think they got into, they definitely got into second and third gear, but they didn't go beyond that because, they kind of rolled over for him. Wolfsburg did have to work for their win. And also they're not the greatest at home. It says here on the stats that they've only won twice in the last 9 outings at the Volkswagen Arena, and this will just tempt Dortmund in. We said as well last week an important factor about the opening weekend to the behind closed doors era is that the first game is very important to get off to a good start. And if Dortmund go anything by their first game, they're going to be just on that high and wanting just to carry on that now, the ruthlessness that they've got. And we're talking about whether Sancho's not going to get in the team or not. And that just shows how good Dortmund were and how good they are, especially with, they were missing Sancho from the start and also Marco Reus, who was injured. And they didn't look like they needed them at all, really.
And another game that kicks off at the same time, 2:30 English time on Saturday, is Borussia Mönchengladbach and against Bayer Leverkusen. It's two of the underdogs in the title race, I would probably say. Obviously, 8 games to go. It's not quite over yet. Bayern and Dortmund are the front runners, but these two certainly aren't out of it. Sam, who do you expect to come out on top in that one? Should be a tight one.
Yeah, it's a tough one to call that because they both put on some terrific performances in the first match day since coming back. I really like Bayer Leverkusen there. They've got some fantastic players. Obviously, Kai Havertz has got 4 goals in 3 games now, and obviously I have to shout out Luke Bissett, who's on our course. He pointed out Moussa Diaby on Twitter, someone else to look out for on the Leverkusen team, and that came to fruition really because he set up 2 of the goals. There's a lot of players like Diaby who have his sort of pace and power with the ball, but they don't have the end product. They don't have the final pass or the excellent finish. But he showed that he's got some ball on him because he set up 2 of the goals against Bremen.
Not just that though, Gladbach also have pace and power in Thuram and Bolo up front as well. It's going to be a very, very good matchup. It's one that we're going to watch the Dortmund game, but I think the Gladbach Leverkusen could prove to be even better, more inciting, just with the quality players they've got.
Inciting? Was that? Sorry, did I hear it wrong?
I think I heard inciting as well.
Sorry, David.
Exciting, insightful fixture.
I meant well, yeah.
I've put you off your rhythm there.
Yeah.
Obviously,
So yeah.
It should be exciting and insightful there.
I'm going to back Leverkusen
Yeah.
purely because of the amazing form that they're in at the moment. Won 13 of their last 15 in all competitions, and like I said, those two players in particular, Havertz and Diaby, are extremely dangerous. So I'm backing them. It'll be a brilliant game, I'm sure.
So there are just 3 of the 9 Bundesliga games that there will be next weekend. There's also a very tasty looking one next Tuesday, which is Dortmund against Bayern, which should be as kind of a title face-off, obviously depending on the results of the weekend. This time next week, in episode 5, we will know the result of that game, so we'll be able to look back. Hopefully it's a good one and not a 0-0. Please don't be a 0-0. No, I can't see Dortmund being a 0-0.
I doubt it.
Now I've bigged it up. Imagine if it was. But the Premier League teams, I'm sure this weekend will have been looking on in envy, perhaps pretty impressed by how the Bundesliga went about it. I think it went fairly smoothly, didn't it? But there was a piece of news. This kind of came out last week. Surrounding some financial problems which some of the clubs might find themselves in. Sam, do you want to explain kind of what this is and what impact it could have?
Yeah, there's apparently a huge amount of money that Premier League clubs might have to pay back to broadcasters, even if the season resumes behind closed doors. The sum that's being reported by BBC Sport is £340 million, which is a lot of money. Of course, a lot of these Premier League clubs' income comes from obviously the broadcasting money. BBC also said that Premier League clubs are due to earn a total of £9.2 billion from broadcasters in the 2019-2022 cycle, which just shows how much money is in the TV game at the moment. But yeah, obviously, Premier League Chief Executive Richard Masters, of course, said that he predicted that the Premier League could lose at least £1 billion if they fail to complete the season, which is still a possibility. It's looking promising at the moment that we could return in June, but that would be a huge loss in the financial sense if they have to pay this sum.
And probably looking even more promising, the chances of getting back after the announcement yesterday by the Premier League. 748 players and staff of a number of different clubs have been tested for COVID-19, and only 6 of them tested positive, which is around 1%, I believe. Harry, this is a clear boost to the chances, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's never good to see people coming positive, but if anyone expected 0 people out of 748, then to be honest, they're very silly. And if it's players, it's staff, it's everyone at the club, only having 6 at, how many tests they've done at the moment, that's really encouraging. Those people go into isolation for 7 days, and they've still got another 2-3 weeks. My only concern is that there's going to be silly players or silly staff members out there that will still go against the regulations. And even though everything's been put in place perfectly, there still will be that one player that decides to go on a night out or something like that. And, that it could all go to pot. But if they get tested before they train, and it's pretty instant, the results, so they don't train, whilst they're positive, I think it's a fantastic way of doing it. Having the news that the tests for the Premier League aren't taking away from the NHS. It means that no one at the Premier League, no players can be blamed for taking it away from the NHS. It's not ethically wrong. I think it's fantastic the way they've done it. I'm so glad that they came out and said that it's not being taken away from the NHS, because then it means that no blame can be put on the Premier League and the Premier League players, because that's an easy scapegoat, and that's one that they can't go with at the moment.
I'd like to hear your guys' opinions on Troy Deeney's comments. Him saying that he wouldn't return to playing even if football did come back in this country. What do you guys think about
that? I think it's fair. I was taking the initiative there. we read each other. I think it's justified with the conditions that his son or his wife have got, that he could become a greater risk. And I think you have to take people's health and well-being into consideration, and if they don't want to go back, then they should have that choice. But in turn, this could be good for English football if they decide to, if they can't play, then some of the younger players are willing to play and get in. They should be given that chance. But I think first and foremost, we have to do it from a safety point of view, and you don't want players to be scared. So it should be their choice at the end of the day, especially with how things have gone.
Do you think there'll be lots more players that will come out like Deeney and say they don't want to play, or do you think this is just a unique case with his son's obviously breathing condition?
I think there definitely will be. I think, is it Danny Rose who's been quoted this week saying he doesn't want to put his health at risk?
Footballers being used as lab rats, I think. That's
what he said. Absolutely. And I think they've got a right to do that, haven't they? What I think might end up happening is if they are in the minority in their clubs, they might just carry on and play without them, which might not be what Deeney wants either. But I think Deeney's been pretty clear in that he is prioritising his family. I think Tammy Abraham said something similar. Clearly, the Premier League are determined to push through and get it done. If players miss out, that's just what will happen. There's not a lot that can be done, is there?
No.
Rightly or wrongly?
No, I think
rightly or wrongly, do you think some players, if they're in the minority in their team, say one player decides not to play, and they might be a key player, they might be a squad player, they might be sort of an important player, do you think they could get punished by their club? Because the club could theoretically come back and say, this is a perfectly healthy training environment, everyone gets tested before they come in, they get tested when they go out, everyone gets tested, so no one's going to come in positive for COVID. Do you think they could get punished by their clubs for saying, actually no, I'm not going to come in? Do you think that could be wages, part of their wages, full wages, or do you think all clubs will go the route of, if you don't want to play, that's okay, we won't punish you?
It's hard to predict, really, isn't it? I think there's a fine line between a club looking good and a club looking bad. And if it means, if they were going to, like I said to Deeney, we're going to fine you 2 weeks' wages because you've refused to do it, then if that gets leaked, then Watford become a scapegoat. And I don't think PR want that. I think they'll probably have to respect everybody's decision accordingly, whether it's the decision that they'd like to hear or not.
I think there has been some backlash of some people who are key workers, of course, and have been working in arguably worse conditions that these players will be going into. But if that's up to them, you can't force anybody to play, really.
I mean, it's just in a lot of jobs that if they don't seem fit to go back, then I don't think they want to, unless they're forced to go back or they're going to lose the job. I think a lot of people are wanting that level of security more than anything. And if there is vulnerable people at home, I mean, if I was living with somebody that I have asthma, but it's not as bad as some people that have, my nana has COPD, asthma, diabetes, and other health conditions, that if I was to go out and play football, not saying I'm a professional footballer, only, I mean, we are if we've seen it Willows. But if I was to go back and something happened to my nan because it was my expense and what I did, I'd never be able to forgive myself. And I think everyone's in that similar mindset.
If the referee from Willows is watching, we hope you're having a great lockdown. Can't wait to see you.
No context needed for that.
That one referee at Willows, yes.
If I speak, I'm in big trouble.
And on that note, we should probably move on. Another season, another league rather, has bitten the dust. The Scottish League have decided they're going to end the season on points per game, which means Celtic have got 9 titles in a row. Obviously, the Big Ten is next year. Harry, do you think they'll do it?
Yeah, they're a level above. As much as Rangers have got a lot closer in the recent years, They are a level above everyone else. They've got a bigger budget than everyone else. That's why I'm not saying it because they're Southampton players, but that's why they've been able to loan in players like Elianusi and Forster. That's why they got Eduardo up front. They have a bigger budget because they're more successful and they're a bigger attraction than any other club in the league. And maybe Neil Lennon as a manager isn't quite as attractive as Steven Gerrard. I'm not a player, or at least at that level yet. So I don't know. But yeah, I think Celtic have got it in the bag for the 10th year, unless something ridiculous happens.
You mentioned Gerrard. Surely he's going to be under a lot of pressure next season too. Obviously, the way that Rangers imploded after they beat Celtic in December, you had Gerrard screaming at the TV camera like they just won the league. But obviously, they went on a pretty poor run after that, and Celtic just went from strength to strength. Do you think Gerrard will be, like I said, do you think he'll be under a lot of pressure?
I think it's pressure, but it's also pressure that he's made himself because he's levelled up this Rangers side, and he'll be under pressure to get closer and closer because you don't want your arch rivals to get a 10th in a row. But if there's anyone that I think that will be able to get Rangers to that next level, it is Steven Gerrard. He's been able to bring in good players like Hagi's son. Is it Anias Hagi or something? I can't remember his first name. You've got Morelos up front. He's going to be difficult to keep because a lot of teams are sniffing around him. If you can keep that core group and maybe add 1 or 2 players here or there.
I don't think Morelos. I think Morelos went 12 hours without scoring a goal towards the end of the season.
How many?
He's still talent though. He's still one of the best strikers in the league.
Yeah, Stephen Deck too, Harry.
Yeah, that's an obvious key player, isn't it? That's an obvious key player.
I think the most shocking thing to come out of this the Celtic points per game and the SPL points per game is Scott Brown's got hair. When did this happen?
Everyone's growing hair. Everyone is growing hair at the moment.
No, I can't grow anything there. That's about it.
You must like the bold style.
Yeah, it's. I think the most controversial ones is the images coming out of Scott Brown and Ashley Young as well. It's like just the hair transplants must be doing wonders at the minute.
Allegedly.
Shout out to all those cosmetic surgeons.
We should probably mention as well at the other end of the table, Hearts. We believe are going to be relegated. Well, they will be relegated. It has been confirmed, but they have said they're threatening legal action as a result. They were only 4 points adrift of Hamilton, who were in 11th. That's surely a fair claim to try and earn some money back, isn't it?
Yeah, this is gonna be a long few months, maybe even years if they can't. If I don't know how big the financial drop is in the SPL compared to the Premier League, but it's not great, and it's a situation they could have got themselves out of, and I think that's where they feel hard done by. The only precedent you can give to him is that they have actually took a stand and said this is what we're doing, and there's only League One that's done that as well. So the SPL doing that is it's a massive step in a direction that we could see the Premier League doing if things weren't able to continue.
I think Hearts are still holding out hopes that the Scottish football will be reconstructed as they were in plans to do. I think the owner of Hearts is actually heading it up, sort of doing in the brainstorming phase at the moment. They're thinking about going to just 3 divisions, 14 teams in each. So I think they're hoping that can come through and hopefully they can stay in the top division. But at the moment, it looks like they're going down. But with the amount of money that they'll lose by going down, they won't lose as much by taking legal action. So, I mean, it was always going to happen, really. If this,
One team that was set to go down probably if it resumed was Stevenage. However, it looks like they may have been thrown a lifeline. Does anyone else want to explain the situation in League Two? Other than Sam, because his chairman has addressed it. Yeah.
I'm too emotional for this.
Well, they've kind of operated in a similar way to Scotland, haven't they? They're going with points per game, as you mentioned, Devon. And Stevenage have only won 3 games in the league all season.
And they've got Russell Slade in charge. go against them as well.
Get that in there.
Are you wanting to take
so,
5 down, Sam, or not?
What was that?
To mention in Russell Slade, you need 5 minutes just to cool down. Or...
Yeah.
So we believe that Stevenage are going to stay up, which is fairly lucky, you have to say. But maybe that's also the way it should go, that they still have points to play for and they weren't officially down. I certainly wouldn't be moaning if they did that in the Premier League, but obviously they're playing ahead. But the situation with the playoffs is an interesting one. Port Vale, in particular, on the weekend before the suspension was put into place, they were in the playoffs. They then lost their last game. They dropped out. And obviously it's now ended, and their chairwoman, Carol Shanahan, who we know, Ben Derber, if you're listening, was due to have an interview with. I don't know whether that's happened. We'd be interested to know, Ben. Carol Shanahan, she's spoken publicly about how difficult it was to make the decision. And you have to sympathise with them, don't you?
Yeah, but the financial ramifications of playing on is just too much, I'm afraid. I think it'd be £140,000 to do tests league-wide, and also a further £200,000 to bring staff off furlough, which for clubs at that level, it's just too much. Yeah, it's a shame for clubs like Port Vale, who are obviously on the edge of returning to League One, but that's just how it is, I'm afraid.
It's also a shame for the teams in the National League as well. You know, Barrow was set to maybe take Bury's place from when they went, but teams like Harrogate and Harrogate Town and Notts County, who were up there as well, they're set to miss out. And after that hard work for that chance in the league, for a team of Harrogate's size and the money, if they were to go up into the league and get that £1 million worth, estimated £1 million worth of investment and 400 grand to help build the ground, that would transform that club forever. And they're going to miss out of their 3 successful years that they've had this challenge for promotion. For me personally, I'd rather see someone like Harrogate get a chance, or Notts County a chance to come back into the Football League, and Stevenage drop out because obviously how poor they were, and it was destined. But I suppose in these kind of situations, but you're always going to get complaints, and you're always going to get people in favour and people against.
Do you think they should have done promotion without relegation for League Two and the Vanarama National? Because then sort of everyone wins, sort of, in that sort of scenario.
I'd like to see maybe Barrow come up from the non-league and replace Stevenage, because they definitely deserve it.
You fancy travelling to Barrow to watch that one, Sam?
I probably wouldn't be making the journey to Barrow now, but
I'd be up for it, though.
You never know.
We should probably mention League One as well. We know League One and League Two both had meetings last week. League Two's the results were conclusive. League One, they were inconclusive. They were unable to come to a decision. I'm not sure what the latest is, actually, but we do know that the Peterborough chairman, Dara McAntony, he was very open with his views on Twitter, that there were 6 clubs with Peterborough, Oxford, Sunderland, Portsmouth, Fleetwood, and Ipswich, interestingly, as well. They weren't in the promotion race. Themselves forward, saying they wanted to finish the season. How do we see this one panning out? Do you think eventually these 6 will lose out?
Again, it's like that. You can't please everybody with your decision. I think even if they did it on PPG, people still complain. There's still points to get. Anything can happen in a title race, as we've seen before, with Leeds dropping out of the playoffs, just to use an example, or Fulham when they were destined not to do anything and they just came up. Nobody could properly determine how the season's going to end without playing the games, and even though they're not in a position to do that, I think decisions need to be made.
I really hope that the promotion and the playoffs and things like that still go on, because it's even worse in League One. There's literally 1 point between 8th and 3rd. So that would be so harsh to like completely rule out the chance of going up for all these clubs.
Go on, Devon.
No, I was just going to say it's a very surreal, all these kind of theories that we're coming up with and possible endings just seem to get heavily criticised, and we're always trying to make one step forward and get thrown back 5. It seems like it's we're not making any sort of progress, because when there's one thing suggested, one other team wants to provide legal action, and then when another thing gets suggested to help them, another team gets brought into it, and it's like one big court case, isn't it?
I think they should do what they did in Scotland, and I think do 75% have a suggestion, and if over 75% of teams vote yes, go for it. If not, come up with another suggestion. Over 75% teams suggest it, yes, no, and do it until like a high majority say yes, because otherwise, you're not going to get 100% of the league happy. But also the same thing, you're not going to have the whole league unhappy. So as long as 75% or more say yes, I think that's as much as you can do.
As we say then, a great deal of uncertainty. But one thing that is certain for the Fourmation podcast is what we end on. And you know what it is. It is, of course, a quiz.
It's time for Harry to burst
ready. A lot of people during lockdown, we know, have done all sorts of Zoom quizzes with their friends. We're going to do one now. Play along at home, as always, and let us know whether it's on YouTube in the comments below, or if you're listening on Spotify or Google Podcasts or Anchor or any of those platforms, tweet us in your answers. I'd be really interested to know. We put out another poll this week on our page. We had 23 votes this time, which is 4 more than before. So we're growing.
Good stuff, guys. Good stuff.
So the options available were, we had a round on Brian and Nigel Clough. Nigel Clough, of course, leaving Burton earlier this week. They got a few financial troubles, we believe. That didn't win. We had FA Cup finals. I thought might be an interesting one. We're starting to see more look backs to FA Cup finals this week. That didn't win. We could have looked back 10 years at 2010. That didn't win either. The one that did win was England in the 2010s.
Ooh.
And that won with 7.8. That won 47.8% of the vote. So that is what we are going with. Could be any question on England in the 2010s. What word am I in that decade? That's the word I'm thinking of. In that decade.
Don't worry, I've up my words all this podcast.
5 questions. I should point out I can only see Devon at the moment for some reason on this call this week. I can't see Sam and Harry, but I'm trusting you not to cheat, because why would you do that?
I've got my eyes on Harry. I can see it.
I can see you all.
Okay.
Delighted to see you all.
So, question number 1, and we are going all the way back to 2010 with this one. England drew 1-1 with the USA in their first match at the 2010 World Cup. Who scored England's goal on that night?
I remember that.
Absolutely. I was at a wedding that night, not mine, but I was at a wedding that night, and I don't know. I've got absolutely no idea. We will go with.
You are?
It was indeed, and I just can't remember who it was.
You can remember the wedding, can't remember who scored for England.
Okay. I'm not a true football fan.
Is it weird that Is it remember that I can? I remember just. Wait, let me start again. Is it weird that I can?
Remember that I can?
Is it weird that I? Damn it! Is it weird that I can remember just sitting in my nan's living room eating Chicago pizza and chips? Is that weird or just?
That's not weird, but you've now made me think of Chicago Town pizza, and I want one. Next,
Nah, go for the vegetable
Focus.
pizza.
Focus.
question number 2. On September the 8th, 2015, Wayne Rooney scored his 50th England goal, making him the Three Lions' all-time leading goal scorer. Which country did he score that goal against?
Ooh.
Mm.
No idea.
I have to say, I missed the tension music.
Oh, I want to change
we,
it.
we all miss attention music.
It's coming home. I'll just think it's coming home instead.
I've crossed out an answer and I've put in a different one. So if it's the first
Okay.
one, I'm going to be very upset.
Question number 3. Who did England beat away from home in Sam Allardyce's only game as manager?
Who was? Oh, it's one of two. Oh,
I should-
it's one of two.
I should know this from the Andy Walker thing.
Yeah.
He's watching. You know he's watching.
Oh,
Your
it's
friendship.
one of two.
Your friendship rides on this.
I'm sorry, Andy.
It's one of two.
Again, it's one you can take a punt on. I seem to say that every week, but it's always worth a guess. Question number 4. We're
If
going to
it's
move
the other
on.
one, I'm going to cry.
At the most
I'd
recent
like to see that.
World Cup 2018, England beat Panama 6-1 in their second group game. Can you name all of England's scorers from that match?
Ooh.
Have a think.
It's 5.
I'm really interested to know as well, if you're watching, whether these are way too hard or whether it's a bit too easy. I never know whether to change it up or...
What did you
You
say?
have to get them. Is it all for the
6-1.
point? Or...
6-1, okay. All right.
Do you have to get all of them for the point, George, or is it one each?
Yeah, we'll say you have to get all of them.
Cool.
And question 5 is, how many tournament games did Roy Hodgson win as England manager?
Oh my!
I believe we only probably need one hand for this.
I'll give you a clue and say he managed England at 3 tournaments. I'll give you a bit of time. I'll set a timer, and then if you still don't know by the end of the timer, then we'll move on to the answers.
Once again, it's one of two.
Poised in that position. Not too sure, but I think this is quite a difficult one. My brother thought up of this question because I thought it needs to be one that they need to work out.
It's a good one.
No, I'm changing it. It's been changed. It's been changed.
Have you all got answers for that one?
It's been changed.
Yeah, I've got an answer.
Yeah.
Okay, we will go through the answers then and find some scores. So, question number 1. England drew 1-1 with the USA at the 2010 World Cup. Who scored for England that night? I'm going to start with Harry on this one. I'm curious to know what he's gone with.
No idea. So I went with the big man, Peter Crouch.
Peter Crouch, Harry, has gone for. Devon, you were confident with this one. What have you said?
It was number 4, Steven Gerrard.
Steven Gerrard. Okay, and Sam, what have you said?
I've also gone Stevie G.
You've got Stevie G too. It was Stevie G, set up by Emil Heskey, who started for England in that one.
Wow, what a player.
I've got a feeling that goal was... There was a story came out of it that on ITV HD it went to an ad break and then it came back and England were 1-0
Really?
up. But yeah, I'm not too sure. If you were watching on ITV HD, is that true?
To be fair,
let us know.
We can't afford HD up here in Sheffield, so I saw it go in.
Okay, on the 8th of September 2015, Wayne Rooney broke the record for England's all-time leading goal scorer. He became England's all-time leading goal scorer with his 50th goal, Who did he score that goal against? Devon, what have you said?
I've gone for Montenegro.
Montenegro. Okay. Sam, what have you gone with?
I've gone with Switzerland.
You've said Switzerland. Harry, have you got an answer for this one?
Crossed out Luxembourg and put in Montenegro for that answer.
You've gone with Montenegro. Okay, so I can tell you that it was a team wearing red. That doesn't help you because all the teams you said wear red. It was Switzerland.
Come on.
Sam is correct.
No, Sam's going to overtake me.
I'm in rich form at the moment.
Tim Boaston was playing for.
I'm back in form, boys.
Playing
Watch
for
out.
Switzerland that night.
Harry Tizard slipped and Sam Allen's in here.
Okay.
Oh, dear.
3. Sam Allardyce had only one game as England manager. Who did England beat in that game? Harry, I'll start with you again.
I've put Slovakia.
You went
Slovakia.
with Slovakia. Devon.
Don't be Slovenia. I beg. Do not be
I've got
Slovenia.
I've got a feeling it's Belarus, and I want to say
Belarus. Okay.
Townsend won it for
And
us.
Sam.
I'm hoping it is Slovenia because I went with
Don't be
Slovenia.
Slovenia. Are you confident in Slovenia? I want to know if you're confident in Slovenia because I'm not confident in Slovakia.
I'm 75-80% on this one.
Okay, Harry, when I asked this one, you were saying it's got to be one of two. Were you meaning Slovakia and Slovenia? Presumably you were.
Yeah, because I get the mix. I think
You're setting it
Azerbaijan
up.
scored that game. 1-0, 90th minute. And
You picked the right one, Harry.
did I? Yes. Come
You'll be
on.
pleased to know it was indeed Slovakia.
The wrong slow.
Okay, question number 4. England beat Panama 6-1 in their group at the 2018 World Cup. Can you name me all of the scorers, England scorers from that game? Sam, I'll go to you first.
I went with Harry Kane, Jesse Lingard, and John Stones. I think he got 4 that day, Kane. So.
You went with Kane, John Stones. Okay. Devon, what have you gone with for this one?
So I believe it was a Kane hat trick, a Stones double, and I thought it was Sterling, but I think it's Lingard.
You're saying you think it's Lingard?
I'm pretty sure Lingard scored.
Oh, no.
Pretty sure. It was a nice goal as well.
Harry, let's go to you with this one.
Yep. I put Kane with 3, Stones with 2, because he should have taken the penalty because then he would have got a hat trick.
Did Stones get 2?
Lingard's got 1. He would have had a John Stones penalty hat trick if Harry Kane gave him the ball for the penalty and if he scored. But yeah, I put Kane for 3, John Stones for 2, and Lingard for 1.
And you revealed that very confidently, Harry, and you're right to be confident. You're absolutely bang on. Kane did get a hat trick, 2 of which were penalties, I believe, weren't they?
And one came off the back of his foot.
Yeah.
2 headers and Lingard. Nearly got it, Devon, but not enough.
Last time he scored, Lingard, wasn't it? Hasn't scored since then.
Say again.
I'm so disappointed in myself.
Hasn't scored since then, is Lingard.
I'm not sure he has, to be honest. Okay, question 5 is pretty tough, I would say. How many tournament games did Roy Hodgson win as England manager? And I'm looking for the exact number. I will start with Harry, he's brought it back in the last couple of questions. Can he get 3 in a row? Harry, what are you saying?
I put 2. I remember the one against Wales, if that was him as manager. I can't remember. I did cross out 3, but I thought there must be one that I've forgotten. So I put 2, because there's no way he only won 1 in 3 tournaments. So I put 2.
Okay, you've gone 2. Sam, what have you said for this one?
I said 4.
You said 4, okay. And Devon, what have you said?
I went in the middle with 3.
Oh, no.
Someone's got it right then, surely.
Yeah, someone's got it right.
I can only
got it right. I can reveal.
I can only remember that Wales win, but surely
I'm going to read out England's wins at tournaments under Roy Hodgson. 3-2 against Sweden at Euro 2012. 1-0 against Ukraine at Euro 2012. No wins at 20.
Oh, it's 3.
2-1 against Wales. And that is it. So Devon is right.
That's 3 downs, bro.
I thought he won all his games at Euro 2012. I thought he won all of them. So, all the group games, anyway.
No, I can't even.
Okay, what I can tell you is that that ends this week's quiz. You all got 2 out of 5, which isn't too bad. Which
Hang
means.
Yeah, we all got 2
I
out of
thought I
5.
had 3.
No,
Sam. I got all the goal scorers.
No.
I don't think you said
we all got 2 out of 5.
I did say Lingard.
No, you said
it's there in writing.
I thought you said. I think you said Kane got.
It's the second
Kane
one. Harry Kane.
No, you said Sterling.
Lingard.
He said
Stones.
No, he's saying it now. It's an absolute disgrace.
I didn't hear Lingard.
I didn't either, George.
You did.
I've got to be honest, George. I didn't hear that either.
I did hear him say Lingard, but when he says, but I'm sure when he said, I think Kane got 4, I'm thinking, did they not teach him math in Grimsby or something? But it would have made sense because he said
6-1, wasn't it?
He said John Stones got 1. So
yeah, I thought it was 4-1-1.
Yeah,
he did say. He did say.
Watch this back when it goes up because I haven't seen.
Watch it back.
There's going to be a VAR.
I will watch it back and edit the scores should they need to be. But for today, we're going with you all got 2. You can appeal this down to the.
No, you got 3.
I'll concede it for now, but.
No, I think.
By next week, I want that point. I went with Harry Kane, Jesse Lingard, and John Stones.
What's it going to be?
So we're saying Harry on 27, Sam on 25, Devon on 23. And that's after 11 rounds of the quiz. What did we make of that one, guys?
Frustrating. Should have known. I should have known the Sterling scoring that.
Little rides on whether you award me that point, George.
I should have known on number 1 and number 5. I'm not disappointed about number 2, but 1 and 5 I should have got.
So we will be. Look out next week ahead of episode 5. There will be another poll going up. What will it be on next week? Who knows? We will see. But that is the end of this week's episode. We got anything else to add, guys? Are we looking forward to anything specifically this weekend?
One thing I just wanted to ask is that I went to vote on the quiz poll, but where can I find that quiz poll, George?
You are very good. That is a very good question to ask. You can find us at _Fourmation on Twitter. We're also on Facebook as well, but the poll will be going on our Twitter page. So make sure you are following us on there and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify or, as we said, however you might choose to listen to us on all sorts of podcast platforms. And we will be back again next week with episode 5. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you later.
Bye.